Hi, welcome everybody. It's Mike Newton down here at Leatham Golf Academy. I've got a new product review for you here, and if you're struggling with your driver off the tee, then possibly this is another option to back up that driver. A little bit more accuracy, but possibly still getting some really good sort of ball speed. So just before we jump into the video, if you haven't already subscribed, enjoying the content I'm putting out there, then please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon to get notifications of any future videos. As soon as I land on my channel, you'll be the very first ones to watch it. Also hook up on my social media platforms, both Instagram and Twitter at MNGolfCoach. Okay, so many golfers I tend to coach or do even fittings for tend to struggle with the driver. Some of them say, I just really struggle with the driver, yet my 3-wood goes as far as my driver, but obviously I've got a lot more control over it. So very sort of common. I think a lot of that factors to do with the shaft length and maybe just that little bit of luxury having some loft there, which just helps to maybe control not only the strike through the length, but also a little bit of that left to right dispersion. So this is, I think, is a good option. So what we've got here is a TaylorMade M6, and it's the Rocket 3, they're calling it, which is it's a great name, isn't it? And it's a 14 degrees, so it's 1 degree stronger in loft than the traditional sort of their M6 fairway wood. So a little bit of a stronger 3-wood, not quite edging to 2-wood, but in that stronger sort of bracket to the 3-wood. So you've got that 3-wood sort of size head, 3-wood length of shaft, which is 42.3 in the length, but obviously you've just got a little bit of a stronger loft there, maybe trying to keep a little bit of ball speed and trying to get a little bit more distance than traditional 3-wood, and hope for keeping that more control that you would do over a driver. So I'm going to hit a batch of shots. I'm going to hit a few off the tee to start with. I'm going to look at some strike patterns, do both off the tee and off the ground, and maybe see how that possibly adjusts that spin number. But I think most of the guys buying this Rocket 3-wood would be thinking of maybe off the tee alternative. So I'm going to hit some off the tee first, but I will hit some off the ground in a bit. Okay, that feels lovely. It's a great sound to that. Obviously we've got a carbon and titanium mix on the head, and that sounds that sort of muted sort of sound. So it sounds very very solid, to be fair, that contact. That's a lovely flight. It's definitely plenty of height on that, even though it's slightly stronger in the loft. Still plenty of flight on that. That was just a tiny bit low in the club face, slightly low heel, but that's flighted superbly. Really accurate on its dispersion there. Now obviously we've still got twist face, or it's the new addition, should I say. We saw twist face in the drivers in last year's model, M4 and M3, but now we've got twist face in the fairway woods for the first time, so possibly helping a little bit on that sort of gearing. Don't really sort of see that shaping, to be honest, as you put that down by the ball. There's no real sort of twisting that is visible there. I think if you look really close to the face and get it at a certain angle, you can maybe just about see it, but you can't really see it when it's sat down by the golf ball. It does sit great behind the ball. Got that beautiful matte carbon back section, which I do like. A smaller, slimmer silver section at the front. Sits very nice and sort of square behind the ball. Yeah, it's a great feel, a great sound to that. Yeah, so off that small tee, no issues for me anyway, launching that into the air and getting what feels like some pretty fast speeds off the club face. Yeah, lovely flight. Yeah, really good. Okay, so we'll look at some of those numbers in a bit. Let's hit some off the ground. Possibly some of you might be looking for that club that maybe just hits off the ground a little bit further than what we do with maybe traditional 3-wood. So we'll hit some off the ground and then we'll look at some numbers in a bit more detail. Right, okay, so we're going to hit some off the ground now. So this might be a little bit harder possibly because what I generally find with a lot of golfers is maybe going to a 3-wood, sometimes a tougher club to hit from the actual ground, again depending on the lie that you're sort of faced with. Now also if you're going 1 degree stronger, the loft might be a little bit trickier again to launch for certain golfers. So again, when you come to maybe test this club, you're going to decide, is it a club that you're going to use more off the tee? If it is, then test it off the tee through a fitting. If it's a club that you're maybe going to use both, then again test it, both options, off tee and off ground. And obviously if it's going to be mainly fairway shot, clubs should I say, and obviously test it off the fairway, but you might just struggle a little bit more, possibly with a 14-degree loft. May get more success with this traditional 3-wood, even the sort of 3HL, the more sort of forward loft option. So we're going to hit some off the ground now. It doesn't look too daunting off the ground in terms of the head. It's not really a deep face with this. Sometimes maybe stronger 3-woods go a little bit deep in the face, but it's not massively deep there, so it doesn't look too scary in a way in terms of I feel like I'm going to struggle to launch this. Let's get this first one hit. Okay, so straight away that's a low in the face strike, which tends to be my miss, especially with a fairway wood, which is one of the reasons I don't tend to play fairway woods too much. That was a little bit low in that club face. Quite central, but a little bit low. Oh, that felt great. Rip that one. Super flight. That's launched really easy. Absolutely no issues that launching at all. Yeah, that's ball speed just under 161. So good ball speed from the ground on that particular one. Again, that felt really solid. Just feel like when it's on the ground, I just have to get a little bit more into it. My attack angle tends to get a little bit more sort of down as soon as it gets on the ground. So sometimes what I find is my spin numbers just pop up a little bit more, as I tend to maybe sort of miss it a little bit low in the face and striking a little bit more sort of downward blow. Does sit great behind the ball though. That finish on it is superb and it sounds amazing. A little bit low heel, but that's flighted away very easily. Okay, I like that, that's good. Okay, let's hit some, let's go and look at some numbers in a little bit more detail between off the tee and off the ground with the M6 Rocket. Okay, so let's look at some numbers. So I've got two sections here, off the tee and off the ground. So look at the tee shots first. So ball speed at 161 as average, which is good ball speed. So obviously the shaft length is changing here against a driver. My typical driver's ball speed's around the sort of 165, edging to maybe 167, 168 on really good ones. So 161 with a shorter shaft, and obviously that 14-degree loft is a good ball speed there. You can see I've actually got one at 164 there peaking out, so as an average at 161, really pleased with that. Launched at 10.6, so a couple of slight low ones. So you can see that 8.3 there and 9.2, slightly low in those face strikes, tends to be a little bit my miss. Is obviously just pulling that average down a little bit more there. Just hitting the little draws there and spinning that at 3794, so maybe a little bit high on that spin number there. Now granted, I've got this in an Atmos shaft, so I'll probably have a slightly stronger shaft than this. This is the only one I've actually got available because it's a glued product. It's no adjustable neck sleeve on these M6 fairways, so probably not the perfect shaft for me, so I could probably dial that number down a little bit more just to get that spin number a little bit more of a better area for me. Carrying at 253 on average there. So then looking at off the ground, I've actually picked up a little bit of ball speed there, so 0.8 mile an hour quicker there. Obviously you'd expect that launch and a little bit lower, again just a couple of low ones there when I've just missed that strike, a bit harder obviously when it comes off the ground. As I said before, spin just pops up a little bit more, so averaging at 4,000. Again, shaft will change that a little bit more for that particular number, and carrying at 251. So not a massive difference between those two carry distances when it's off the ground and off the tee. Okay, so there we have it. There's a TaylorMade M6 Rocket 3-wood 14-degree. I think that's a great option for any golfer out there, maybe struggling with a driver and prefers that shorter shaft length. And I know through custom fit you can get short shaft length in the driver, but maybe just like the smaller head shape, but then just that little bit more accuracy because of that slightly more loft of the 3-wood there. It is a typical one I would tend to see with a lot of golfers will hit the 3-wood probably as far as drive, if not slightly further. You shouldn't do, but you know, depends on again the golfer's particular club delivery. But obviously, get some confidence is another aspect we've got to weigh into the equation. I think the confidence of a lot of golfers with a 3-wood is much higher than it is maybe with a driver. Still a lot of technology in the M6. We've got that bit of that low CG placement, that back section there. We've still got that speed spot pocket right behind the club face. Obviously, it's non-adjustable in the neck sleeve, so you haven't got that dialing in. That's where maybe the M5 product would sort of come into its own, where you can then start changing loft down as well as weight position. Got twist face on the top, and obviously that carbon mix there. But I think it's a great looking golf club. Sits behind the ball, fantastic. It sounds really, really good, and the numbers there are pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that ball speed there, so a really good option. I'd just love to maybe have that at maybe a 13 degree, possibly for me personally. But I think if you're going to mix it up with a fairway, the 14 would probably just benefit a little bit more. Let me know your thoughts, guys, on M6 product Rocket 3. Is that something that possibly you could put in the bag? Via your comments in the section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. If you've enjoyed the video and you haven't subscribed, then hit that subscribe button. Follow my social media platforms, both Instagram and Twitter at MN Golf Coach, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.